Hello, BookTube. I've got something a little bit different here today. Really excited because it is um, a live show that's really live. I'm right here with my best friend Allison, and we're here to talk about the Jaipur trilogy, which is one of the books in the Reese Witherspoon book club. So the first book was The Henna Artist, the second book was The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, and then The Perfumist of Paris. We actually just finished not too long ago. And we also just met the author, Alka Joshi, a couple weekends ago in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that was super fun. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Allison first to tell us a little bit about what we just ate, because we actually just ate dinner that was kind of related to the books. So Stephen, I know Stephen is always talking about, me trying to break out today he's talking about burgers, dogs, beans, and, busting out the barbecue. No, it was actually Indian food today. So
yes. So what we whipped up in the kitchen was one of the recipes that she has in the back of the book, and it's chickpea curry. And we served that with Jira rice and sprinkled cilantro on top of it, and used all these wonderful spices like turmeric, garam masala, and coriander, and it was just fantastic smell in the kitchen. And
yes,
just so good, so delicious.
I'm always the first one to go back for seconds. I'm not shy about that at all. Just want to say hello to everyone. Cool Gamer, hey, and Alan, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. So let's see, where do we start?
We should start, I think, with the henna artist.
We should start with the henna artist. So I guess since you're the one who got me into this book series, can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to that particular book?
Absolutely. So I've always loved art. I teach art and photography, and I've always been fascinated with henna. And when I saw that book, I was like, ooh. And last year I had a henna party for my birthday. And I've always been fascinated by the intricate designs, and I studied a lot of Asian art in college. So I was like, I want to read this book. It just automatic. All I had to see was the word henna, and I was drawn already. An artist, of course, as well.
Absolutely. And I wish actually I could show you guys some of Allison's artwork. She is super talented. Such a great artist. I am not, but I can definitely appreciate it. So yeah, that book was really cool. One of the things that I really enjoyed about that first book was how intricate I felt like the lives of the people were. So all of the characters, I feel like their lives were really intertwined with each other's. And, it made me think of the intricate designs and everything with henna, and how everything is so kind of wrapped into that. Nice. So Alan's actually at a party right now. Very cool. And Stephen actually asked, how was this author's writing style compared to traditional American authors? I think for me, and you can speak to this as well, Allison, I think it was just so vibrant.
Yeah, I saw her words just painted the most beautiful pictures in my head. She just described everything so eloquently.
And Alan, he said, what medium do you work in, Allison?
Oh, great question. So I love photography is my first passion, darkroom photography. And then I am a huge acrylic painter. I absolutely love acrylic painting. And I've recently got into mandala dot painting as well.
And Alan is an artiste himself. He does mainly watercolor and ink. And I've actually seen some of his stuff.
Wonderful. Watercolors are so beautiful.
Very cool. So with with the whole trilogy, there's a lot of discussion about the Indian independence movement. So the first book takes place, I think it's about 10 years after.
Yes.
Does that sound about right?
Yes.
And at the beginning of that first novel, there's a quote from one of the main characters, Lakshmi, who says, "Independence changed everything. Independence changed nothing." So, what did you think about that quote?
That was really a very loaded statement. Like, what is she saying? And I actually discussed it with my boyfriend. And so we were thinking, maybe she's talking about, even though Britain's not in control anymore, but the politicians are. Corrupt politicians are still in control. And then if you think about, women still did not have those rights to right to choose.
Yeah.
Anything, even who they married.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of looked at it, I guess, specific to the families, because we get to meet the Singh family, which is one of the very prominent families in the series, and they are very wealthy. Pavarti, who's the wife, she uses Lakshmi's henna services a good bit, and she always kind of treats Lakshmi as if she's beneath her.
Yes.
And I kind of saw it as those families, I'm sure before independence, they were still, they probably had relationships with the British because they were trying to maintain their social status.
Yes.
And the British, I'm sure, wanted ends with those, families who owned businesses or had money or had some sort of influence in the community. So I figured for Lakshmi, not much change as far as that went.
Right.
The same
No,
people.
I agree completely.
Yeah, the same people were still, and I think that kind of speaks to what you were saying with the politicians.
Yes.
The politicians are still seeking out.
The wealthy upper class are still, in charge, making the decisions.
Yeah, it's just they're closer to home now.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I think sometimes democracy is a process.
Yes.
It's a process, and there's, hiccups and things along the way. Steven said, having read the series, what are your thoughts now about the caste system? What do you think, Allison?
That's a great question.
Of course, we're drinking chai tea.
As we drink our chai.
But Allison goes all in. She's like, let me just go ahead and make us some chai, because in the book series, they're always drinking chai. But I think that, again, it's kind of like talking about democracy being a process. Like, I think a lot of those, discriminatory practices that are related to the caste system, I think it takes generations for those things to
I think that is getting a lot better in India. And it's very similar. Like, we have a lower class, middle class, and upper class here in America. It's a very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, every society is going to have their issues with social mobility.
Yes.
And obviously the caste system in India was extremely rigid.
Very, very rigid.
And honestly, I think through the series, Stephen, we do see a little bit of that evolution. Yes. I would say, from the first book to the third book, because the third book is set in the 1970s. So we do get to see a little bit of that. I mean, it's definitely, the caste system is definitely still at play. No doubt, 100%. And there are still arranged marriages. But what I find interesting with arranged marriages, there have been TV shows. I don't know if you guys have seen any of these, but there have been TV shows where they basically do arranged marriages for people. Yes. I mean, so
is there a Netflix one?
I think so. Actually,
we met that
the lady.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, there was a lady interviewing the author, and she was part of that series.
Yes, I think she was on season 2 or 3.
Basically an Indian matchmaking series, but
Mm.
even before that, I can remember a few years back they had a show where they just took people's interests, demographics, personality test or whatever,
Right.
and they arranged the marriages.
Yes.
And it was basically a big social experiment. And some of those marriages were successful,
Mm-hmm.
and they went on to have kids and stay married. So yeah, I think culturally people get very egocentric, like our way is the best way.
Right.
But, you know, I'm not saying I would have an arranged marriage.
Right.
But apparently for some people that has been successful.
Very successful.
So you know,
I think it requires both partners being willing to compromise if needed and work together to make that relationship work.
Yeah. So I found that really fascinating, because you did see a lot of people in the book have different opinions on that. So, you know, some people were definitely against arranged marriage and they had a negative experience with it. And then it seemed like, particularly with the upper class, they were, I don't want to say resigned to the fact, because it's not like they seemed upset about it necessarily. Right. They just knew that, like, that was the way it was. Like the Singh Sharma families.
It was like they were already predestined.
They were predestined.
Yes.
So yeah. So very interesting. Alan, have fun at your party, buddy. Thank you for stopping by. Always good to see you. So yeah, I try to keep an open mind. I love to learn about different cultures. And of course, being a World History 1 teacher for many years, I taught a good bit about the caste system in ancient India and kind of how that developed. And yeah, I thought this was a fascinating look. And one thing to speak to that again, you know, in the 3rd book, this is set in Paris, and the experience that women in Paris had was not all that different from the experience of some women in India. So I found that, you know, pretty telling. So I think it's easy for cultures to point at other, you know, countries or places that are foreign to them and say, well, at least we don't do that, you know, and that sort of thing. And it's, you know, reading about it, because, you know, obviously we've come a long way as far as women's rights and those sorts of things go, but it's interesting to see it in this format, in fictional format, with a trilogy, with characters you know and love.
And I think that's one of her themes throughout all 3 is like women's rights and, you know, how the evolution of that.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Steven said, please describe your experience meeting the author. That must have been cool. Yeah, that was really cool. What did you think, Allison? Because I have to tell you, it was Allison's idea.
It was. I loved meeting her. I hung on every word she said. And she just is so she's such an eloquent speaker. And her like telling like describe, I like to also hear her pronunciation of the characters' names,
because I was completely wrong.
I was too. And I loved the background story, the amount of research that she did for Perfumist of Paris. That, like, I learned so much from her that I had no idea about the perfume industry.
Yeah, that was really cool. Something I found kind of funny is that she actually does not wear perfume.
Right. Oh, that's right. She doesn't.
And she got the opportunity to go to some of these very well-known, like, I forget the names, but like these very...
It was all in France, right?
Very upper class, like expensive perfumeries, you know, these cool places. And she doesn't even wear perfume, so I thought that's kind of interesting. But they opened their doors for her, and she told me something I did not know, that Western perfumists, they tend to add alcohol to the mixtures. So when they're, mixing up the different spices and herbs and essential oils, they're
diluting them.
Yeah, they're diluting it with alcohol. And so that's why when people are around people from India or they go to India, that's one of the things that they remark upon is the really strong smells.
Yes.
And, for Indian people, that's normal. Like that's what the perfume smells like. Yeah. It's, Westerners who have diluted it over time. Yes. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I had no idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was really interesting. She was really cool. I liked the lady from the matchmaking show who interviewed her. I don't remember her name. But
she did a great job interviewing
her. It was
her.
A very fluid interview. They just went right through, each question. And she answered all the questions from the audience. She could not have been more gracious. She stayed while everyone got their book signed. She wrote notes in everyone's book. I mean, and she is a very popular author. I mean, her first book has been optioned for Netflix. So,
I'm really anxious to see that.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see that too. And it's funny, she talked a little bit about that process because she said she's pretty much out of it.
Yeah, she sold, sells the rights to it and then they're done.
Yeah, she said they actually give you more money to stay out of it.
Yes.
Which I can kind of see that because I feel like authors, the book, they spend so much time with these characters and they spend so much time writing the book that I'm sure if they were involved in a production, you're territorial,
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Bradley, good to see you, buddy. Former history student of mine right there.
Nice.
Yep. Very cool to see you here. So, yeah, that was a really cool experience. And, I was just impressed with how approachable she was.
Yeah, she was just wonderful.
Very, very nice. So I think we talked a little bit about this because we started talking about women's rights, but one of the themes in the book is about freedom of choice.
Mm-hmm.
So initially our main character, Lakshmi, she is forced to marry this man named Hari. I guess that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. He's very abusive. She eventually escapes that marriage, and when she starts working as a henna artist for all of these wealthy women, she provides all these little tea sachets to the women for various things. So that could range from, something to help their hair loss, to fertility, and to also as well as to induce an abortion. So what do you think about that theme of freedom and how it relates to Lakshmi's story?
I think she's paving her own way, and she's doing it in a lot of people made the assumption that she ran off and became a prostitute.
Yeah.
But she's using her talents and what she learned from her mother-in-law.
Yeah.
With the way that she mixes the herbs and spices.
Yeah.
To really help save that money. She's saving every penny to have her own house and renegade almost.
Yeah.
In a sense.
A trailblazer.
Yes, trailblazer. Yeah. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. I would go with that. It's funny though, because I feel like no one in the story is truly free.
Right.
Because everyone, even the characters who are from the upper class and they have all the advantages and seem to kind of have it made, they are constrained. They are still constrained by societal expectations, by the caste system, by family members that depend on them.
Yes.
So even those characters that I did not like.
Right, like was it Pavarti? Pavarti. I feel like she was trying to save her name by buying that house from Lakshmi.
Yeah.
Like trying to get her out of town.
Yeah.
So she doesn't tarnish their name.
Yeah. She, so actually Stephen asked, is this inducement of abortion considered medically safe? So in the book, actually, there is quite a terrible scene where it goes wrong. And so, yeah, I would think my opinion is that anything that would induce that is questionable, right? It's you know, it's basically some sort of poison that you're putting in your body. So,
it was some kind of root bark or something that
she was doing. And I think in that particular case, the woman had lied to Lakshmi and had told her that she was not as far along as she was. And because I think for Lakshmi with the herbs, there was a small window there for that. But that was kind of difficult to read about. With Pavarti, let's talk about her for a little bit, because she.
Would you say she's the antagonist?
She's definitely the antagonist, because basically what we have here is Pavarti. She is one of the wealthy patrons of Lakshmi, and her husband Samir is very flirtatious with Lakshmi. He seems to talk to her a lot. They seem to be like-minded in certain ways, and that ends up imploding in a big way. But Pavarti knows that Samir has his dalliances, we'll say. He is a man about town, and that is why he actually is one of the main clients for these little sachets of herbs, because he has all of these extramarital affairs. So Pavarti ends up, essentially running Lakshmi out of town.
Yes.
And buying Lakshmi's house.
The house that she worked so hard for.
Yes. Now, here's my thought, though, on that. You might disagree.
Okay.
I think that was really hard for Pavarti to do, because that house that Lakshmi built, she had a mandala in the floor that she designed that included like hidden messages. It was basically like her life in art form. Her name was even hidden in it. And when you think about that, so Samir and Lakshmi do end up having one night of passion. Okay. And I don't think it was worth it for all the trouble. No. Things were already.
It was like she was almost like just everything seemed like it was just collapsing in on her.
At this point, Lakshmi's long lost sister Radha, who was only 13 at the time, she ended up getting pregnant by Pavarti's son Ravi, who is a scoundrel. He is the scum of the earth sort of scoundrel. And so things were crumbling on Lakshmi. She felt bad that she hadn't protected her sister, and she goes to Samir to kind of tell him what's going on, and they end up, having that one night together. So thinking about Pavarti, I can't imagine someone who's been in that sort of relationship their whole life, and to now have a house where one of the biggest centerpieces of that house is this floor.
Yes.
It has that woman's name on it. You've got to be a pretty strong character. I'm not going to say I liked her, okay? But I do kind of respect that a bit, because to be able to live with that. And then if part of me thought she may have been basically, throwing it in Samir's face, like wanting to remind him of what he has done,
his transgressions,
and his be very public about it in a way that won't disgrace the family, because
absolutely
the outside, will not know, but she knows, and she knows he knows.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, I actually liked the bits of the story that included Pavarti.
Yes.
Yeah, she was definitely
I thought it
needed.
was really. I think in one scene, one of his prostitutes comes to Pavarti, like saying, "Oh my gosh, he cheated on me."
Yes. Oh, that was crazy. That was crazy. Yeah. So, what kind of twisted story do you have to have that one of your husband's mistresses comes to you to complain that he's cheated on her? So that was kind of crazy to read about. That was pretty funny. I did not expect that.
I know, me either.
Yeah. Did not expect that at all. So one of the central relationships in this whole book series was the sister bond between Lakshmi and Radha. Why do you think that was such a volatile relationship?
Wow. So I feel like Lakshmi was just totally caught off guard. She didn't even know she had this sister.
Yeah.
And here she is. She's trying to do everything she can to support herself. And then all of a sudden she has to take care of someone else.
Very true. From Radha's perspective, when her sister left her husband, people assumed she'd run off and become a prostitute because of, there being few options for disgraced women.
Yes.
Radha became the, quote, bad luck girl in their little village. And adults, children, people treated her very poorly. And this brought disgrace, not just to Lakshmi's name, but to the family name. And so Radha was really put in a desperate situation. So I feel like there was a bit of resentment there. She carried that label with her. For sure.
Oh, for sure.
So what do you think helped turn that relationship around?
That is there. I feel like it all, like, when after that, the giving birth, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like it turned around.
Yeah.
That Radha realized she could not do this on her own.
Yeah.
And that her sister might have actually been right the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and I think, Radha was 13 and of course she wants to keep the baby. She has these delusions that Ravi is going to marry her, but he's, he is predestined to marry Sheila Sharma. So, yeah, I think she realized that it wasn't her sister trying to prevent her from being happy or keep her from this love for life. That her sister was just looking out for her.
Oh yeah.
And her sister was always there. I feel like it's kind of like a typical teenage story where they hate their parents or they hate the authority figure until they need something, right? And then it's like, oh, I'm gonna be so nice now. Yeah. So I feel like there was a little bit of that with Radha, because she definitely clung to people that she felt like she got her way with.
Yes.
She was very close to Kanta.
Kanta, yep.
Very close to her. So that so in this culture, divorce equals disgrace. I wonder if this same holds true for the men. I would say to a much, much lesser extent.
Oh, absolutely.
But I would say that there was still
there's still some stigma.
Some stigma, yeah. Still some stigma, but definitely much, much more difficult for women in that regard.
I think you're pretty much done if you're divorced.
Yeah. So, one of the things that Radha used to do with Kanta is go to the movies and read books, right? And what is she reading and watching? Well, she's reading all of these love stories, romance novels. And, most of them, in the grand scheme of things, are pretty tame. It's like Jane Austen.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you looked at me over the boiled potatoes and it was love, that sort of thing. Our fingers brushed in the carriage,
Right.
The romance is a bit different. in those classic books. So that I didn't think was too salacious, but she was watching some movies like from Hollywood. So she was seeing like Marilyn Monroe.
Yes,
and
the American symbol of sex.
Yeah,
yes,
for sure. So what part do you think that played, if any, in Rada's poor decisions? And what overall do you think those things have an impact on young people?
I do think. I mean, we see it.
Yeah.
Every day that we're influenced by what we see in social media.
Yeah.
And like her, she's being influenced by the movies, her literature that she's reading. The difference, I think, is knowing that is not reality. That's just fictional.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of a role it played. I feel like she was already rebellious to start with before even being exposed to that.
Yes. I do feel like being so young, though, because she was 13 in the book, I do think the, romance, I think her willingness to believe Ravi, loved her. I think maybe reading those romance stories and kind of getting swept up in that, she may have been a little bit influenced by that. And she had not seen much of the world, right? Because she had been in her village. She was the bad luck girl, right? So people kind of avoided her for the most part. So I don't think she had any life experience to draw on. And unfortunately, her sister she just met.
Yes.
So they hadn't
had that bond.
Formed that bond yet.
And she didn't have anyone to guide her and tell her.
Yeah.
What to do.
Yeah. I
see where some of it did influence her, but I also feel like she was a rebellious character.
Yeah, it's in her blood. Like I feel like she was just even in the third book. I mean, she's
rebellious in that.
Yeah, she's gonna make her own decisions.
Oh yes,
for sure.
Very strong-willed.
Very strong-willed. Yes. And I do think that film, literature, they can have an impact on people. I wish literature had more of an impact on people, because I feel like literature is so much more powerful when it comes to, just developing empathy and, just all the skills that we want our students to have when they go out into the world. So I wish literature honestly was
more influential versus, a TikTok.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't think film is influential really at all, but these 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, clips, people don't have the attention span for anything anymore. I think that has had a huge influence on attention span and instant gratification.
Yes.
Which I think leads to poor decision making, because you're making decisions based on instant gratification.
Yes.
So I think today we're seeing probably a bit more of that sort of influence.
Absolutely.
For sure. So let's see. What do you think about that Samir Lakshmi relationship? Do you think that he really cared about her, or she was just one of many women that he just used?
I think he cared about her in a way that benefited him.
Yeah.
In the end, like if she hadn't been there for a benefit for his purpose, I don't know if they would have ever crossed paths.
Very true. I do feel like, in a weird way, he respected her because she was a businesswoman. She was independent. She was witty. She could give it back to him. They had those little kind of interactions where he would say something, she would say something. They would kind of throw it back at each other. So I feel like she was a bit of a challenge.
Yes. And I think he wanted that challenge.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think again, I think it goes back to, he's not my favorite character, obviously,
Right.
but I think it goes back to even he is not free. You know, he is constrained by family obligations, by what society expects of him. You know, he's been in an arranged marriage. You know, these are all the expectations. So, you know, I feel like she may have been the love of his life
You think
that he
so?
just could not have.
Okay.
You know, she may have been. I think the author kind of gives us just enough to plant that seed in my head, but never definitively answer that.
I can see that.
You know?
Yeah.
Because he would flirt with her, but he never took it there.
Right.
And we know he was all about town.
He was
out there. So we know he didn't have a problem doing that.
Right.
And he knows how discreet she is because she's involved in this kind of shady sachet, you know, transaction with various people throughout the city. So he knows she's discreet. So it's not like it would come out,
right,
you know, to haunt him. So I feel like
he definitely respects her.
Yeah, I feel like that control that he showed,
yes,
does show me he respected her, and that kind of makes me take a step back and think, okay, there's something there.
Yeah,
something there, but we'll never know for sure.
Never know.
Let's see. Steven said, do you think a trilogy like this could have been published decades ago, or would it have been censored? I think it would have been published. I've read much more salacious things that are older. Actually, right now I'm reading The Manchurian Candidate with Mark over at Book Time with Elvis, and that book, it was published in 1959, and that book is a lot more salacious than the film. Okay, and I love the Frank Sinatra film.
Yeah.
But yeah, that book, I was kind of taken aback by a few scenes in it. Some of them were kind of odd, but yeah. That's for another video. But yeah, there were a few things in there that I was like, wow, okay. So I think, yeah, I think so.
My question though, would that book have been censored in India 10 years ago?
Ooh.
Because I think about Sweet Francaise.
Yeah.
That book was banned in France at one point when it came out. The French did not want anything to do with that book.
Well, that I never thought about that, but that is a good possibility because obviously India's all over this trilogy. I mean, it's the
just
whole independence movement.
Something to think about.
Yeah, and one thing that came out in the third book, which I was really intrigued by, is the courtesans in India and how they played kind of a major role in the Indian independence movement. They basically kind of funded some of that. So and the author talked a little bit about that. So yeah, that, you know, that might be something that they didn't want publicized because, you know, people, you know, tended to look down on those.
And she does talk about a lot of taboo topics.
She does. She really does.
Trilogy.
You know, here's the thing about that though. I love books that don't shy away from hard topics.
Right.
But I absolutely hate books that have an agenda.
Right, but I don't think she has an agenda.
Yeah, she does not.
She doesn't.
Well, if she does, she hid it from me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
If she does, I didn't pick up on it because I felt like she was really just giving us a peek into these characters' lives, and there was no judgment in how she treated these decisions. Right. Because there's a pretty major breakdown between Lakshmi and Radha when Radha, you know, makes it known that she does not want to kill her baby. Right. You know, and she pretty much says it in the harshest way and accuses Lakshmi of, you know, basically murder, essentially. Yes. She's like, you know, how would you, this is our family, so why would you even suggest that I take something that could, you know? So I feel like, you know, and then we got the flip side of that, the early part of the book with Lakshmi, who was, you know, doing this to, you know, to help people who were in desperate situations.
Yes.
And she really felt like she was doing something good. So you got both sides of that, and I never felt like it was preachy or saying this is the right way, this is how I feel. I was never able to kind of interpret the author and their kind of opinion in that.
Right.
So I really liked that.
Yeah, no, that was, yeah.
Yep. So what did you think about Radha's decision regarding her son?
I do think she made the best decision to give him up for adoption.
Yeah.
I think that was absolutely the best decision.
Yeah.
That for everyone, for the child, for Kanta and her husband, for Radha, because this allowed Radha to go to school, to be educated, to then pursue her dreams eventually.
Yeah. So for those of you who have not read the book, this decision basically comes down to, Radha has the baby. Is she gonna be a part of this baby's life or not? And her aunt, she calls her Auntie Kanta,
yes,
she has wanted a baby so badly, and she gets pregnant, and she has many miscarriages, but this time she goes all the way,
and it's stillborn. Is that correct?
It's a stillborn baby.
Okay.
And she is absolutely devastated. And so Radha, they decide to give the baby to Kanta, and the deal was Kanta was going to allow Radha to kind of be the nursemaid, basically, and help. And Radha found herself in a position where she just was so jealous of her baby, and she
didn't want her baby to love anyone else but her.
And she was like feeding the baby when she wasn't supposed to, because Kanta was trying to breastfeed the baby, and so Radha would like feed him a bottle so he would be full. And she found herself really resenting this woman who had shown her nothing but love and kindness.
Yes.
And so she ends up fleeing the house with her few belongings, and she's got this bundle in her arms. And of course, Lakshmi thinks, oh my gosh, she's stolen the kid, which that's what I thought at first too. I'm like, oh my Lord, she has stolen this baby.
Yes.
But it turns out it was just some of her belongings, so it was fine. But she basically tells her sister, you got to get me out of here. Like, if I am going to let Kanta raise my son, I can't suffer in this way. And I really liked how that was handled, because I think we saw in the third book a lot of that kind of come to a head.
Yes.
Because we see how Radha has struggled with that decision. And I think that's something too that a lot of people don't talk about is, women, whatever happens with their children, whether they raise their children, they adopt, they give the child up for adoption, whatever happens, that is something that they live with forever.
And she dealt with it for forever, because she carried around the scent of her child. Whenever she felt like anxious, she would smell that scent that she made that reminded her of Nikki.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. So in this third book, she is a perfumist, and she creates that little scent that reminds her of her baby. And in this book, spoiler alert, guys, kind of telling you everything that's happening here, but can't really talk about the trilogy without it. In this book, her son does seek her out. He wants to know who she is. He stumbles upon these envelopes that have been returned because Radha doesn't open them. But throughout the years, Kanta has tried to keep Radha kind of up to speed on what's going on in Nikki, his life.
Right.
And so of course, Nikki, he's like 17, 18 years old, and he reaches out, and I thought that was That was really cool because, you know, it affects the mom and it also affects that child, you know, because that child, you know, even if they've had a quote better life, you know,
Yes.
financially, stability wise, whatever, you know, they're still going to wonder where they came from. They're still going to wonder.
Absolutely. Because he had her eyes.
Yeah.
Those rare colored eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was something else, you know, you just like, why can't people piece this together?
The mother-in-law, she knew right away when she saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. What about and I'm gonna say his name wrong because I kept calling
Malik?
Malik.
I
kept calling him Malik.
That's what I thought it was at first, Malik. And then the author pronounced it Malik.
So you'll have to keep correcting me. So what makes him such a likable character? Because he, for me, was just so likable.
He was. I absolutely adored him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, what would you describe him as? Like, he just, like, he tried to lift everybody up, I think.
Yeah.
Like, he was there, he was with Lakshmi 100% for everything she did. And he tried to be there for Radha as well, and Dr. J, and he just seemed like he was always trying to be the person that helped others.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the cool things about his character, he's basically like a little, what I would call like a little street urchin character, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically like this cute little kid living on the streets, and he's so clever, and you kind of have to be if you're in that situation. But he ends up being Lakshmi's little assistant, and he is just so great. Like he's just so loyal. He's such a loyal character, and you know, I think in books, I love when you have family that you choose.
Yes.
You know, because of course this book is all about families.
Yes.
But I love his character because he's the family that Lakshmi chose, you know, and he chose her, you know, they completely loyal. What did you think about his transformation? Because the second book in this series, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, it's mainly following him. And he's being sent to Jaipur to be an apprentice under Kanta's husband and his construction company. So what did you think about his little transformation?
I thought it was astounding because he went from living on the streets to getting this wonderful education.
Yeah.
And working with an architectural firm.
Yeah.
Like, he just really surpassed, you know, what people would have expected him to be.
Yeah. And I think one thing that allowed him to do all of that are some of those street smart skills.
Absolutely.
You know, and part of that is keeping some secrets.
Yes. He had all the secrets.
Definitely keeping some secrets. So as Steven says, did the son express bitterness about being adopted? I think so. A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually went better than I anticipated, though.
It did.
Yeah.
I felt really bad for him.
I did too.
Because Radha really just did not know how to handle the situation, like, to let him know. And I think in the end, like, it just was a really beautiful reunion.
Yeah, it really was. It was a beautiful story, for sure. Yeah. The second book, I really loved the intro to the second book. So the second book. Oh
gosh, I love that intro.
Explosive intro. So spoiler alert here. That intro, they're building this grand theater. And it's opening night, and it collapses, and people are killed, people are injured. It's a huge disaster. And I was just like dumbfounded. I did not expect that beginning to the second book because, you know, a sequel to a book, it's kind of like, you know, where's this going? And am I going to like this? And I was hooked. I was hooked when that happened. Now, what did you think of the relationship between Malik and Nimi? I guess that's how you pronounce it.
I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it.
If it's wrong, sorry. But what did you think about that relationship? Because she was basically like a herder. Her tribe that she was with, and they were kind of like mountain people. So she was not very, civilized or urban or anything. She was widowed. Her husband died, and she had two children. And she was an interesting character. What did you think about that matchup with Malik?
Really liked it because it showed Malik's, like, that he did not care that she was widowed or that she didn't have all the fancy jewelry and the clothing. I think he really, truly appreciated her raw beauty and her personality. And that just made me like Malik even more.
Yeah.
That he would, like, he didn't care about all that other stuff. It was who you are as a person.
Yeah. And I think he really confirmed for me what a loyal person he was with how that relationship worked out with
Absolutely. 100%.
But Lakshmi and Nimi, that's a different story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like to her, Malik was a son.
Yeah.
And she wanted Malik to marry up.
Yeah.
Find a really nice, wealthy girl.
Yeah.
And he almost like she like thought maybe Nimi is like trying to take advantage of Malik.
Yeah. I think she was having flashbacks from Radha. I think she felt like she let Radha down because she didn't protect Radha or like show her the way. So she was prepared for Ravi's advances and all of that. So I felt like she harbored a lot of guilt about that.
Absolutely.
And I feel like she thought she was doing right by Malik. I feel like it came from a good place. But I also feel like her and Nimi were very similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they very much are.
They're kind of both tough as nails. You know what I mean? Like, they're tough as nails. They're doing what needs to get done. And, so a little bit of that friction, I was like, come on, ladies, you're too much alike. Like, just get over it. Like, it's fine.
And maybe that's one other quality that drew Malik to her.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah. But that makes sense. And I loved how Malik always called Lakshmi Auntie Boss.
Auntie Boss. I just love that.
Auntie Boss. I love it. I love it. So in the end, Ravi was not penalized at all. So in the first book, Ravi gets Radha pregnant. His parents ship him off to a boarding school in England for a little bit, and then he comes back and marries the Sharma girl, and all is well. In the second book, he's the one that's responsible for that disaster at the beginning of the book. Basically, he is, doing some unsound business practices to try to enrich himself and carve his own little way, I guess. He doesn't want to be constrained by the family business. So he's not penalized for any of that. What did you think about that?
I had a feeling that was going to happen because of who his family is.
Yeah.
That he was just going to get by with it.
Yeah.
And he did. Yeah. And I was very disappointing that he didn't really get the justice he deserved.
Yeah.
But also didn't surprise me either.
Yeah. And two, one of the characters that I really loved in this book was the older Maharani.
Yeah, she's great.
She was cool.
Yeah.
She was like chilling in her greenhouse, drinking gin and tonics, like, just spitting straight facts.
Yes.
She just told it like it was. She kind of knew what her situation was. And, it's funny because even in her position, she's not totally free either.
Right.
Her husband heard the fortune that one of his
son was going to betray him.
So he wouldn't let her have any children, so they ended up adopting to have the crown prince. Okay, so she really wanted children, so she kind of missed out on that. So even though she's this very wealthy,
she still has no freedom of choice.
She still has no freedom of choice. So I think one lesson in that is that everyone has constraints on their life. And but yes, she was a cool character. And I do feel like she was pretty shrewd. she knew who to listen to, and
Mhm.
was able to figure out that Ravi had been very chintzy on the building materials,
Yeah.
and that they were using decorative bricks instead of weight bearing bricks, and that caused the collapse, and she was able to figure that out. But if Ravi had been punished, and if it had been more public there, um I think the whole Singh family's dreams just were gone, because you know in Indian culture it does seem like it's very family oriented.
Absolutely,
It's
100%.
very focused on the children, and in this era, particularly the male children,
Yes.
because they're going to be kind of the standard bearers for the
Mhm.
family, and
Absolutely.
inherit these family businesses and things. And so, I was not surprised that Samir was willing to kind of take the hit.
Yeah.
Take the hit on that. It was his fault. It was his name on the company. Um, and so they were willing to do that to protect their child. I feel like that is very relatable to modern times. We have so many modern conveniences. Life is so great for most of us. We are very blessed. And parents get wrapped up in this idea of giving kids the best of everything. You want your kids to have it better than you did, And I think that leads to a sense of entitlement. And I think we saw that with Ravi.
Oh, 100. And he didn't even want to be like in this business. He didn't want it.
Yeah.
And the other son didn't either.
Yeah.
Neither one of them.
Yeah. So, ungrateful, entitled.
Very entitled.
And that's the difference. I think hardship cultivates character. I'm not saying I want to go live on the street.
Right.
And that, I don't want to be homeless to cultivate character. I'm not suggesting anyone go sell all of their belongings.
But when you don't have to work for anything you get, does it build character? And I don't think it builds a character.
Yeah, I think that people who have a lot, if they're very successful, I think they do seek out hard things.
Yes.
Because, we know she's into David Goggins as well. We're both into David Goggins.
Yes.
But he had a very hard upbringing himself. And so, I think that definitely cultivated who he is 100%. But I've read other like self-improvement books, motivational things, where these really successful people who came from money, they came from wealth, and they really didn't have to scrape and scrounge. They seek out hard things.
Yes.
For one person, it might be, selling their company and just starting from scratch.
Yeah.
You don't want to do the family business, that's fine, but you need to start something from scratch and actually build it. It might be running a half marathon or an ultra marathon or whatever,
Right.
Obviously I'm into the running thing, but I think doing hard things or coming from a hard place does cultivate character. Sometimes it makes people hard. It makes them, bitter.
Well, I think back to David Goggins, he said, do something that sucks every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Malik was willing to do that. Like, I think he was totally willing to do that, and he'd do that for people he loved.
Absolutely.
And that's why he was so likable.
Yeah.
So likable. Perfumist of Paris. So we're going to talk about the last book. I know, I feel like we have been on here almost an hour, but
it's so much to talk about.
we're literally talking about 3 books here. So last book, Perfumist of Paris. What did you think about the relationship between Rada and her husband, her French husband, Pierre?
Oh, Pierre. I do not like Pierre. I was so done. That one chapter where she just talked about him constantly, and him and the like butting heads about her having that, being able to go to work and having a career, success and career. And he really just did not want her to do that.
Yeah.
He wanted her to stay at home.
Yeah.
And that frustrated me so much.
Yeah.
I think I texted you. I said, if she doesn't stop complaining about her husband.
It was, I will say, this last book, the chapters were a lot longer than the first two books.
Very long chapters.
And that was a little bit harder for me to get into this one than the first two, because I feel like the first two, the chapters were just long enough to where if I sat down and was like, okay, I'm just going to read a chapter, I could do that and finish it. With this, I would have to stop reading mid-chapter.
That's what I would have to do. And I'm like,
because they were so long. So, and I guess that, that may have been intentional because we were kind of bogged down in that relationship with Pierre, which was very frustrating.
Yes.
But I think it's very representative of a lot of relationships still in the 1970s.
Yes. And the culture where, that they're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think Radha missed about India the most?
Ooh.
Other than her son.
She definitely missed, oh gosh. I know she missed like all the scents and the whole atmosphere.
Yeah.
She missed it all.
Yeah.
Every thought she had, it always related back to a scent.
Yeah.
Or a memory related back to a scent.
Yeah.
That she had.
That was
in
cool.
India, yeah.
And just like, eating the Indian food and like, the teas, and of course, like, since reading these books, I've been on an Indian tea kick. Like the sweet Himalayan. Must try that one.
Oh, I gotta try that.
Best one I'm on right now. But just kind of getting into that and the scents, that I do feel like she definitely missed that. And India seems like, obviously I've never been there, but
I would love to go.
Yeah, it seems like a very vibrant place. Like the colors were bright, and just the way she described things in India versus Paris. Paris, of course, it's gorgeous,
right. But you could feel like you could see she felt more alive when she talked about India.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as that goes with the roles of women, do you feel like that changed very much over the three books or not? No.
Compared to the first book, I do see quite a drastic change.
Yeah.
And because I feel like Radha's having more freedom of choice, and it's less taboo if she wanted to go and work.
Right. It's more of the personal,
yes,
personal implications with her husband. Her husband's unhappy, and so then we have to suffer through this,
Yeah, because you have that.
But it's not society.
Right, because you have that character, the what was her, Delphine?
Delphine, yeah.
Who's the master perfumer.
Yeah.
And she thinks Radha could be the next master perfumer.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool to see, because she did have like a mentor. Yes. So that was
a female mentor at that.
Female mentor. Yeah. So that was good. How do you feel about, this is kind of personal. We're getting kind of personal with this question. I don't know why I put this one on here, but here we go. I did. How do you feel about secret keeping within families?
Oh gosh, I think all families have skeletons in the closet.
Yeah.
I do. And that's a tough one, because say there's a secret, would you keep it from your grandchild? Or would you tell your grandchild? Would that change how they see someone in the family?
Yeah.
Or would you want that child to make their own opinion?
Yeah.
Because exposing someone, that can change the whole, how someone sees that person completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think all families have them.
They do. Speaking of family secrets, I did just like promo that entire VC Andrews collection.
Yes.
On my channel, so that's quite a few. I should probably read some of those. Yeah, family secrets.
Oh yeah, VC Andrews is all about family secrets.
Yeah. Family secrets. That's tough, because I feel like they always come out.
They do. And I almost
When someone
wonder,
dies,
yes.
they always come out when someone dies. So, it's kind of a catch-22. All families have them. I'm not a fan of secrets.
I hate secrets.
I don't like secrets. But people get into some weird situations.
There's one secret that they still kept in that book about they never revealed to Nikki that he could have been the Crown Prince.
They sure did.
That was the one they did not reveal that secret.
Why not?
I think they were worried it would really destroy him.
Yeah. Now, why do you think that would have destroyed him? Do you think he would have wanted to be the Crown Prince?
I think he would have felt like, well, they were just looking for anyone. Like, they were just trying to get rid of me.
Yeah, they were trying to make money. They were trying to sell me.
Trying to sell me because she asked Lakshmi, how much did they offer you for my son?
Yeah. Well, what do you think about keeping that secret? Do you think that was okay? That was the right thing to do?
See, I feel like it just right at that particular time period, maybe that is a good secret to keep.
Yeah. Well,
because he's already been through so much, and then he's starting school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and two, I think with secrets, it's tough because, are you telling the secret to
hurt someone?
Are you telling the secret are you keeping the secret just to protect yourself? What is the motivation, I guess, behind the secret keeping?
Yes.
I think that is definitely at play.
And I think that one was definitely to protect Nikki.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So Stephen said a French husband had to be a culture clash there.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, her and the mother-in-law.
That turned out so well.
But
though.
that, it just turned out to be such a beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
Between them. But at first, the mother's like, oh, I don't want Indian food in my house. I don't want my house to smell like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. I really liked that relationship, though.
I did too.
Because they eventually became very close, and her mother-in-law was
revealed secrets.
And
but Pierre doesn't know those secrets either.
Yeah.
Because they didn't tell him.
Did not tell him. Everybody had a secret.
Yes, I was gonna say, there's so many secrets.
There's so many secrets. My gosh. So were you satisfied with the ending? What'd you think?
I absolutely, when I finished, I was not angry. I've read some books and I'm super angry at the ending. This one, I felt like it just wrapped up so beautifully.
Yeah.
It just completed the story.
Yeah. I really liked at the ending how everybody's kind of passions kind of aligned so beautifully to work together.
Yes.
Dr. J, he's still doing the doctor thing. Lakshmi, she's still doing that thing in the garden.
Yes.
And then Nimi is helping with the garden. And then Malik, he's the business end of all that, selling it. And, it just...
And then allowing those women to come in and work in the factory.
Yeah, with the perfume.
Giving them jobs. Or why don't you allow women in here to work?
Yeah.
That was such a valid question Rada had.
Yeah.
And so she took that advice and let those women come in.
Yeah. So there were so many connections. I think that kind of was a theme throughout all three books, is how connected these people were. Some by blood and some by choice. And
And I think that also just, it goes back to when you think of henna art and the intricacy, and then we're all connected.
Yes.
And we all affect each other.
Absolutely.
In different ways.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you have anything else that you wanted to say about?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what Netflix brings to us. And I can't wait to see what the author, what her next stuff is. Her next book.
This is all she's written. The henna artist was her debut novel. So, wonder where she will go from here.
Yes, because she's a beautiful writer.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. Well, thank you to everyone who stopped by during the live show, and thank you to Bestie Allison.
Yes,
for
it was so
hanging
much
out.
fun.
So much fun, and yeah, had a great dinner, great books, great friendship. So yeah,
Absolutely.
all right, guys, thank you. See you next time.